78,000 men surrendered, and then the real nightmare began. April 9th, 1942. In the jungles of the Bataan Peninsula in the Philippines, the final American and Filipino defenders laid down their weapons after months of siege. They were not armies anymore. They were exhausted men in uniform, starving, sick, barely holding themselves upright. They expected a prison camp. They received something else entirely. There was no ceremony, no warning, just a single order: march. And in that moment, thousands of men realized the war had not ended. It had only changed form. What followed became known as the Bataan Death March. It began at Mariveles in Bagak, at the southern tip of the peninsula. From there, the prisoners were pushed north through a collapsing chain of towns: Pilar, Balanga, Orani, Hermosa, Dinalupihan. Then deeper into Pampanga, Lubao, and Guagua, before the long road toward San Fernando. The distance was nearly 65 miles, but distance was not the enemy. The sun was. The heat climbed beyond 40 degrees Celsius. It pressed down like a physical weight. Dust rose with every step, clinging to sweat and dried blood until the men looked less like soldiers and more like moving shadows of exhaustion. There was almost no water, and when water appeared, it was often unsafe. Desperation broke discipline. Men ran toward muddy roadside ditches just to drink. Some never finished swallowing before they were struck down. At certain points, prisoners were forced to sit in the open sun for hours without shade or relief. The rules were simple: keep moving or die. Those who slowed were beaten. Those who fell were left behind. Those who collapsed were not helped. The column never stopped, not for the sick, not for the wounded, not for the dead. The road behind them began to change. At first, bodies appeared occasionally, then regularly, then constantly. No graves, no markers, no names, only silence under the heat. By the time the prisoners reached San Fernando, thousands had already died, but the march did not end there. At the railway station, survivors were forced into Japanese boxcars. They were packed so tightly that men stood shoulder to shoulder with no space to fall. When one collapsed, there was nowhere for him to go. No air circulation, no relief. Some suffocated before the train reached its destination. From there, they were taken north to Capas in Tarlac province, and then marched again to Camp O'Donnell, a former American military base, now turned into a prison camp. There was no medicine, almost no food, and water that often spread disease instead of stopping it. What followed was predictable and unstoppable: malaria, dysentery, beriberi. Men died every single day in numbers too large to properly record. Mass graves were dug constantly. Bodies were not buried with names, only space. Other camps followed: Cabanatuan in Nueva Ecija, the largest prisoner of war camp in the Philippines, and Bilibid prison in Manila. But the pattern never changed: starvation, disease, forced labor, death. Some prisoners escaped during the march itself, helped by Filipino civilians and guerrilla fighters who risked execution to hide them in the jungle. Most did not get that chance. Years later, the war returned to the Philippines. In 1945, Allied forces began liberating the islands. One of the most famous operations was the Cabanatuan Raid. U.S. Army Rangers and Filipino guerrillas launched a precision attack and rescued hundreds of surviving prisoners from captivity. Men who had survived not days, not weeks, but years of suffering. One of those survivors was Albert N. Brown. He endured the march, the camps, and everything after. Doctors once told him he would not live past 50. He lived to 105, long enough to carry the memory of every man who never came home. Today, the survivors of Bataan are almost entirely gone. Not just soldiers fading with age, but living witnesses to one of the most brutal marches in modern history. Soon there will be no one left who walked that road. No one left who felt that sun, No one left who heard the silence of men falling behind. Only history, because this was not just a march, it was Bataan. A place where surrender did not end the war. It only changed the way men died. And if we forget what happened on that road, then they disappear twice, once in death and once in memory.